What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Guys at Magic. Today, we're going to be doing something extra special for you. So today, we're going to be doing a $100 upgrade for the Cavalry Charge deck, one of the brand new Precons out of March of the Machine. And with me today, I do have Steven. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello. How's it going, guys?
So Steven was gifted 100 imaginary Monopoly dollars to upgrade this deck as best as he possibly could. Steven, I am super excited to hear what you've done with this list. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about what the deck does and start off with the commander so we can get an idea.
Yeah, so let's start off with the commander. Really, the only thing you guys need to know is it has eminence. We can probably just move on from there. No, just joking. But we are playing with Sidar, Jabari of Zhalfir. It is a legendary creature human knight. It costs 1, a white, a blue, and a black. It does have eminence, and then whenever you attack with one or more knights, if Sidar Jabari of Zhalfir is in the command zone or on the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. It also has flying and first strike, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, super strong card. I love the eminence being able to filter through our deck. Flying first strike is always amazing. And then, probably one of my favorite techs is once this does hit the field, if you do decide to play this, it's just bringing stuff back from your graveyard to the battlefield. No bringing back from the graveyard to your hand. No, have to replay it. This is really good. I love it.
So wonderful recursion-based creature. Has a super powerful ability. Has some great abilities on itself. And I mean, like you mentioned, we've never come across a legendary creature in which is not busted with eminence before. So
Yeah, I was a little concerned at the first. I know when we did randomly decided which decks we were gonna get, I really did want the Esper deck because Esper is a really fun color scheme for me. And I was really excited for the Eminence. I was a little hesitant at first because I was like, it's not really as strong as all the other ones that you've seen before. But after kind of playtesting and playing with the deck in general, it's really good. It's really, really good.
oh yeah, I was being totally sarcastic for those of you who didn't figure it out. Eminence is a busted mechanic, and this card is insane. All right, so we are obviously going to be playing around with lots of knights in this deck. Go ahead and tell us about some of the cards that you have included here.
Well, funny enough, David, I'm actually going to talk about the first creature I threw into this deck, which isn't a knight. It is the Council of Four. It is 3 colorless, a white and a blue. It's a legendary creature, human noble. It's a 0/8. And it says whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. It also says whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 white knight creature token. This is probably one of my favorite additions into this knight themed deck, and I know it's kind of funny that it's not a knight, but that second ability is just crazy, and I couldn't not have it in the deck.
I completely agree. I actually do have a deck focused around this, so I have this as the commander for one of my builds, and I love this card.
Next up, let's talk about Banalish Marshal. It is 3 white for a creature human knight. It's a 3/3, and pretty easy, man. I mean, it says other creatures you control get +1/+1. So this will help out with the Council of Four, funny enough. So I mean, it'll be a 1/1/9, which is pretty beefy. But I mean, in a night themed deck, when we're just trying to lay down some knights and we really want to make sure everything's going to be pumped up, this is a really solid include.
Yeah, go wide lord effect, pretty good.
Continuing with the pump, we're going to go ahead and add in Marshal of Zhalfir. This is a new card added to the set. It is 1 white and a blue for a creature human knight. It's a 2/2. It has other knights you control get +1/+1, and you can also pay a white and a blue. You can tap it and tap another target creature. So pretty good. So you don't really have to swing with this if you don't want to. But if you want to tap down a possible blocker or defender, here we are.
I'm seeing the theme of making your things a lot bigger.
I want to hurt people.
We have that on recording.
Don't send it anywhere. The next 2 cards I want to talk about we'll put up together. We have Cavalier of Night and Cavalier of Dawn. Cavalier of Night is a fun one. It is 2 colorless and 3 black for a creature elemental knight. It is a 4/5. It has lifelink, and then whenever it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. It also says whenever it dies, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I love this entire series of knights. Unfortunately, I did not add the blue one because I didn't really think it was going to make sense. But the fact that this comes down, you can sack a creature, which, foreshadowing, we do make some tokens in this deck. So I'm not too worried about that. and then just destroy whatever our opponent has on the field, I think is a solid thing. And then it's almost like a Sun Titan. Just bring something back when you're done. You know what I mean?
Yep. Plus 4 or 5 with lifelinks, not a bad body.
No, not at all. And then Cavalier of Dawn, it is kind of the same thing. 2 colorless and 3 white. Creature Elemental Knight for a 4/6. This one has Vigilance. And when this enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. And then it also says whenever it dies, return artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So not as fun, it's not coming to the battlefield, but still a really solid effect on this one.
Nice little piece of recursion and on theme with creature types.
Up next, we have Kinsbale Cavalier. It is 3 colorless and a white. This is a creature Kithkin Knight. It's a 2/2. And it has night creatures you control have double strike. So David, we're pumping up and we're dealing double the damage.
So for the viewers at home, one of the things that we do is we actually play test each other's decks after we have built these things. And this was probably the most exciting card in the entire list. And in terms of like, whenever I had this in my hand, it was just like, it was a snap keep for my opening 7. And I knew that I had to get this thing in play as soon as possible because this deck just runs over everything once this card's in play.
Yeah, this was an automatic include. Whenever I saw a night deck, I was like, okay, let's just really hurt people. And like I said earlier, I really want to hurt people. I also added a really fun card. I added Battle Angels of Tyr. This is 2 colorless and 2 white for a creature Angel Knight. It is a 4/4. It has flying and myriad. Whenever Battle Angels of Tyr deals combat damage to a player, draw a card if that player has more cards in hand than each other player. Then you create a treasure token if that player controls more lands than each other player. Then you gain 3 life if that player has more life than each other player. A lot of text on this card, but the fact that it has myriad and you have 2 other ones swinging at the 2 other opponents is really, really good.
4 mana for a 4/4 with these kinds of effects is just nutty to me. I think this card would be still really good at 5 or potentially even 6 mana.
I think 6 with what this card can do would have been more adequate, but the fact that it was 4, I was like, okay, easy enough. And the last creature card that I added is probably one of my favorites. It is Guardian of Faith. This is 1 colorless and 2 white for a creature Spirit Knight. This is a 3/2 with Flash and Vigilance. And it also says when it enters the battlefield, any number of other target creatures you control phase out. For some odd reason, this deck came with a ton of board wipes. Like, I think it was almost 4 board wipes, which was a little aggressive. I took out a couple and then added a couple, which was kind of funny. But I think having that board wipe and then having that on the stack, Guardian of Faith hits the field and then phase out all your creatures so none of them die. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's a great little flex play.
Or, to be honest with you, funny enough, I have a feeling you guys might have removal in your decks. So here you are.
Spoiler, I don't.
Spoiler, I know you do.
I've got 1.
Yeah, those were the creatures I added, David.
I definitely see the theme here. I mean, your commander cares about knights, and you've got some knights that are ready to fight. So I'm a little scared of this deck. So as far as what else you have done to beef this deck up a little bit, sadly, not everything can be a creature knight that you're going to be swinging it with. What other kind of goodies do you have for us?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the spells. We'll talk about the sorceries first. I went ahead and added, like I said, a few board wipes to the deck just in case. Since we do have so much recursion in this deck, I wasn't too worried about wiping the board. So I went ahead and added just a goodie, Wrath of God, 2 colorless, 2 white, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Went ahead and also threw in a Vanquish the Horde, 6 colorless, 2 white. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. Kind of like Blasphemous Act, does cost a little bit more when you kind of think about it, but still a really good card. And then the last board wipish card that I added was Farewell. 4 colorless, 2 white. Choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts. Exile all creatures. Exile all enchantments. Or exile all graveyards. Farewell is an amazing card if anyone's doing any graveyard shenanigans. If anybody has anything on the field that you really just don't want to be there, just say goodbye to it.
I don't know how to feel about you throwing in 3 board wipes here. I feel like you're just not going to let your opponents have any fun.
Well, I don't want you guys to have fun, which kind of actually leads into the next sorcery that I added. It is Ascend from Avernus. So it is X and 3 white. This is a sorcery. This has return all creature and planeswalker cards with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile Ascend from Avernus. So if things get a little out of hand and I have to wipe the board, but I really liked what I had on the field, I want to bring them back.
Well, it's good to know that after you destroy everybody's things, you'll still continue to play.
That is, I want to hurt people. I can't state that enough. And then the last spell I added was an automatic I included in my mind. It was a Chroma's Will. This is 3 colorless and a white for an instant. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So this is a real game ender depending on the board state.
Yep, just go ahead and swing in, cast this, kill one of your opponents, or I guess worst case scenario, if you need to, use that to make sure that your board state stays up.
I mean, yeah, pretty much, man. I mean, Chroma's Will is in a lot of my creature themed decks, and I love it so much. Let's go ahead and move on to some of the fun artifacts that I threw in here. I did add the Circle of Loyalty. This is 4 colorless and 2 white for a legendary artifact. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each knight you control. Spoiler alert, it'll never cost the cost of 6. Creatures you control get +1/+1, and then whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. It also has pay 3 and a white. You can tap it, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. Love this card. Love this card.
This is so specific and so good. I can see why this just slots in immediately.
Yeah, it's nuts too, because this is probably the cheapest edition for this deck.
So good.
Went ahead and also added a Stoneforge Masterwork. This is 1 colorless for an artifact equipment. It says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. It has equipped 2. Funny enough, we are a knight themed deck. This will get out of hand. And then the last artifact I added was Godsend. It is 1 colorless and 2 white for another legendary artifact equipment. This says equipped creature gets +3/+3. Whenever equipped creature blocks or becomes blocked by 1 or more creatures, you may exile one of those creatures. Opponents can't cast cards with the same name as cards exiled with Godsend. Equipped 3. So obviously, this is made for more of like 4 decks, but still a really good effect.
Godsend was one of the first cards that I opened whenever I started playing Magic. It's got a special place in my heart. This is a super powerful equipment.
Yeah, I mean, this was pretty much a godsend for this deck. You get it?
Oh, I get it.
Okay, sorry, you didn't laugh. I just wanted a little chuckle.
I'm sorry. I'm busy just looking at this deck shape up and just kind of like shaking my head. It's like I'm seeing the future right now. I'm seeing my life total drop significantly whenever we record and play these up against each other.
Yeah, well, funny enough, your life total is probably going to drop a little bit more after you see some of the enchantments I added. I went ahead and threw in Paladin class. This is 1 white and it has spells your opponents cast during your turn cost 1 more to cast. It's a little stacks, gotta love it. You can pay 2 and a white to upgrade this to level 2. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And then you can pay 4 and a white to upgrade it to level 3. Whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gains double strike.
So it makes it hit a little bit harder.
Just a little harder. A little harder. I also added Etchings of the Chosen. This is 1 colorless, a white, and a black for an enchantment. As Etchings of the Chosen enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Spoiler alert, we're choosing knights. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. You can also pay 1, sacrifice a creature of the chosen type. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn.
Nice little pump, nice little protection.
Yeah, man. I think my favorite part about this is you can pay 1, and if you are targeting one of my creatures, I can just sack it to give something else indestructible, and then just swing with it. It's a pretty strong card for 3 mana. And that pretty much wraps up all the fun spells and stuff like that. I did add 5 lands to this deck. I did add a bounce land, Orshoff's Basilica. It enters the battlefield tapped. Whenever it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. I also added Shipwreck Marsh. This is another fun land. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you have two or more other lands. Funny enough, I mean, I think we'll have two lands on the field, hopefully, before this hits the field.
Yeah, those
I
are a
also,
very good cycle.
yeah, dude, it was so good. It's not like if you have two or more lands that it enters tapped like that. Like I hated that cycle. Another fun cycle for me, land wise, was Morphic Pool. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you have two or more opponents. This is such a strong cycle for any EDH deck. You have three other opponents, so this is usually always an auto include for me. I added a spicy Rafine's Tower because I love the fact that we can have a plains, an island, and a swamp. It does enter tapped, which is not too fun, but it does have cycling 3, so if we're in the late game, we really don't need the land. We want to dig a little bit more. Let's go ahead and dig. And lastly, I added a Vault of Champions. Vault of Champions it enters the battlefield tapped unless you have two or more opponents. Again, just like Morphic Pool, really fun card.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of the scary new toys that you're going to be throwing into this deck. I'm definitely terrified of having to play up against this. Let's talk about some of the creatures that you've cut from this list.
All right, so I did take out a good chunk of creatures. I took out 10 creatures to be specific. The deck normally comes with 32, but we are at 30, so not too bad. I went ahead and got rid of the secondary commander. I'll just go ahead and throw her out first. Alinda and Azor. I mainly got rid of her because she just costs a lot of mana. Granted, it does have flying in Ward 2, and you can draw X cards, but it was too much for me. I think once you get to a certain point, I wanted to keep this deck low to the ground, so that way we could kind of like get some fun stuff going on, and that's pretty much why I cut this card.
Completely understandable. I mean, she's very mana intensive, and then even on top of it, the abilities on the card are pretty intensive as well. So I totally see why you cut that.
Speaking of aggressive mana costs, I got rid of Knight of the Last Breath. This is 5 colorless, a white and a black for a 4/4, and you can pay 3 more, sacrifice another non-token creature, and create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. I mean, really, the only cool part about this card was the afterlife effect, but I mean, this was kind of stupid.
You don't want to pay 7 mana for your spirit tribal?
This was like one of the weirdest includes in this deck, dude. I don't get why they threw it in there.
Well, I see why you kicked it out.
Kicked it out far to the curb. I also got rid of Sire Eleonora, the Discerning. This is 3 colorless and 2 blue for a star 4. Its power is equal to the number of cards in your hand, and then when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Spells your opponents cast that target it cost 2 more to cast. This is a cool card, but at the end of the day, if I only have 1 card in hand and I haven't drawn anything, this is just a 1/4, or at worst a 0/4. 5 mana for that to just draw a card really wasn't that appealing to me.
Get it?
Liliana Standard Bearer was another card I got rid of. It is 2 and a black. It has flash. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures that died under your control this turn, and that was the reason I got rid of it. If I only have 2 creatures on the field, I just wasted a bunch of mana for a board wipe to then play this to draw 2 cards. I thought it was just stupid.
I don't know, man. It does synergize really well with all those board wipes you threw in.
Funny enough, you're not wrong. If you're at home and you want to throw this back in there, throw it back in.
I do see why you kicked that one out as well.
I also got rid of Arvad the Curse. This is 3 colorless, a white and a black for a legendary creature Vampire Knight. It has Death Touch and Lifelink, and then other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. This is also a 3/3. I get it, +2/+2 for your legendaries. At the end of the day, I feel like the cards I added plus the cards that are already in the deck add enough pump to where this wasn't really needed, and for 5 mana, I can just do something else.
Yeah, I don't see you 100% on why this card would be included. You care about knights, not necessarily legendary tribal, so it makes sense.
Silverwing Squadron was another one I got rid of. 5 colorless and a white. It's a creature human knight for a star. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, and then when it attacks, create a number of 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents you have. So this one was kind of a tough cut. 6 mana is still pretty expensive, but if I had to put a card back in, this one would probably be it. I love the effect on it, but I just kind of got rid of it.
I mean, I can see it. It's a little bit more on the expensive side coming in as a 6 drop. It does have some pretty solid abilities, though.
Yes, and that's really the only reason why I got rid of it was just because it is a little touchy on the like the mana side. But uh, speaking of attentive mana, Aethersworn Adjudicator, 4 colorless and a blue. This is a artifact creature, Vidalcan Knight. It has flying. You can pay 1 white and a black, tap it, destroy target creature or enchantment, or you can pay 2 and a blue and untap it. It's a 4/4. So pay 5 and then 3 more. You can destroy a target creature or enchantment. So for 8 mana.
I feel like this is a card that they have managed to fit into the Commander products every single time they come out with a new series of precons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a pretty easy cut. I won't lie to you. Cool look
Oh,
though.
it gets cut from every precon upgrade I do as well.
Another one that was a little tough to cut was Knights of the Black Rose. 3 colorless, a white and a black for a creature human knight. It's a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, become the monarch, which is always really fun. And then whenever an opponent becomes the monarch, if you were the monarch as the turn began, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So kind of fun. Kind of makes it so people don't want to swing at you because they'll lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. But at the end of the day, I don't know if you guys know this or not. Commander is a fun format with 40 life, and a lot of people don't care.
I am one of those players who would look at that and still immediately attack in to get the monarch.
Mm-hmm. Life is a resource.
Speaking of life as a resource, do you have another card you want to talk about with maybe some life as a resource?
Yeah, funny enough, I do. Vana, Butcher of Magan. This is 3 colorless, a white and a black for a legendary creature, Vampire Knight. It's a 4/4. It has Vigilance and Lifelink. Funny enough, but you can you can tap it, pay 7, destroy target non-land permanent, activate this ability only during your turn. So you can pay 7 life and then you can gain 4. So in reality, you paid 3, but you can only do this during your turn, and you can't do it the turn it comes down. This card sucks.
Yeah, it's not good.
No. I also got rid of Lochthwain Lancer. It is 4 colorless and a black for a creature human knight. It has Menache. It's a 5/5. And then whenever a non-token knight you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you draw a card. Pretty cool effect. I know a bunch of cards that do it for way cheaper though. So I did not add them to the deck, but regardless, I just threw this one out. I said, no, it's 5 costs. Get rid of it.
I really feel like with the artwork on the card, it looks like the creature has flying, so I'm kind of disappointed that it doesn't.
Yeah. But it does have Menache.
I hate the way you say that.
I love the way I say it. I know it's Menace, but Menache just sounds so much better. But yeah, that was pretty much all the creatures that I got rid of. I know it was a lot, but I think the additions that we had definitely outweigh what those creatures that I just took out do.
Yeah, it definitely seems to drop the curve and then up the power level by quite a bit. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the other cards that you have removed from this precon. So moving on from the creatures, what else do you have from us?
Yep. So I did get rid of 3 other spells. We'll talk about the sorceries real quick. I did get rid of a board wipe. Funny enough, I got rid of Fell the Mighty. It is 4 colorless and a white for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. I just figure if I'm destroying something, I'm just going to destroy the board. And with so many pump effects that we have, I was really afraid that this card was just going to be too weird.
Yeah, I get it. And I mean, you did already make room with a couple of other board wipes.
Mm-hmm. I also got rid of Time Wipe. This is 2 colorless, 2 white, and a blue. Return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. Just too expensive. I mean, with the recursion we have in the deck, I just felt like we could easily just wipe the board, get whatever we want back next turn, or with our commander. I just didn't really care for this. And then I also got rid of Path of the Enigma. It is 4 colorless and a blue. Target player draws 4 cards, and then it also has Will of the Planeswalkers. Starting with you, each player votes for Planeswalk or Chaos. If a Planeswalk gets more votes, Planeswalk. If Chaos gets more votes, or the vote is tied, Chaos ensues. You know, I love Plane Chase. It's a really fun format, but I did not build this deck with Plane Chase in mind. I guess, you know, if you guys want to play Plane Chase in this deck, you can definitely keep these cards in, but it just was not what I wanted to do.
Totally understand.
Speaking of getting rid of cards with plane chase stuff, I also got rid of 2 artifacts. It is Fractured Power Stone. This is 2 colorless for an artifact. You can tap it, add 1 mana to your mana pool, or you can tap it, roll the planar die, activate this ability only any time you could cast a sorcery. So just really, you could just do it on your turn, is really what it's trying to say. It's 2 mana for 1. It's basically just a Mind Stone with, you can't draw a card, which is not what I want. And then I also got rid of Ichor Elixir. This is 4 colorless for an artifact. If you would roll 1 or more planar die, instead roll that many planar die plus 1 and ignore 1. Shitty Soul Ring. No. And then, David, I did get rid of some lands. I will say, warning, I am the kind of person that will cut down a deck's land base before I cut down a deck's creature spell base. So I did get rid of 8 lands. I only added 5, so there's that.
So
I did get rid of. Yeah, we are down 3, which technically still isn't bad. We are still at 36 lands, which I felt was more than enough for this deck, especially after taking out some of those very large creatures. But I did get rid of a swamp, a plains, and an island. Just super simple. Just didn't really want too many basics. I went ahead and got rid of Terramorphic Expanse. I did get rid of all the Thriving cards, Thriving Isle, Thriving Moor, Thriving Heath. To be honest with you, I think the main reason why I did it is because I always hate having to keep up with which color I picked.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not a big fan of that cycle of cards, so I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you have better memory than me, you can keep them in, but I just also the fact that they come in tapped, I hate that. And then also I got rid of Temple of the False God, which was kind of tough because I do secretly love this card, but if I don't get rid of it out of every single one of my decks, I will draw this turn 1. So I just refuse to play it.
And that is why I remove it from all of my decks.
But yeah, that is my deck.
So all in all, any kind of like closing thought or statement, just from my perspective, this deck looks very solid. I can't speak on behalf of the others, but I think this is so far the one that I am most afraid to play against.
I mean, to be honest with you, man, this deck came with some amazing cards already. So it was really easy to just kind of like pick and choose the shitty ones until it got down to like the very nitty gritty. And that's kind of when I got to that point where I was like, all right, cool, I need to cut 3 lands because I don't want to get rid of anything else. But this deck is super solid, man. It really does just kind of like pilot itself, if I'm being honest with you.
So is this something that you would recommend for a newer player? Do you think this deck is fairly straightforward? Is it good enough to take down to your LGS? What do you have to say about that?
I think for a $100 deck, I think that if you are picking this deck up and you want to spend $100 to upgrade any one of your precons that you have, out of everyone that we've done so far, this is definitely the one I would recommend for a newer player. Specifically because it is pretty straightforward. It is, tribal for knights. You have a bunch of anthem effects. You have a bunch of pump effects. You have so much recursion, so much card draw already in the command zone, number 1. And then you just have so much stuff to do. If you don't like what your opponents are doing, just wipe their board and then bring your stuff back. Like, there's so much to do in this deck that you'll never have a boring time.
All right, well, I love that. Any other closing statements or thoughts that you may have?
Excited to play against you guys. Not gonna lie to you. This is the one.
And then with that being said as well, so I know that you had a $100 budget for this one. How did we do with that budget?
David, I cheated a little bit. I actually spent $100 in Monopoly money, and then also I had to break the bank and spend 74 cents.
All right, so we are we're overdoing it there by 74 cents, but I think we'll go ahead and let that count. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. I hope you have enjoyed this video. This is one of the deck upgrades by Steven, and if you like this, he's going to be doing a $300 upgrade for this list as well. We should have that published out here soon. Make sure that you comment down below. Let us know how you would have built this deck a little bit differently. What kind of inclusions did Steven make that you're here for, that you support, and what kind of cards do you think he maybe had overlooked, or maybe that you have a different opinion of. As always, we love all of the support. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at GuysThatMagic. And until next time, peace.
Take care.